Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Insights with C5 Insight. And today's topic is something that has come up recently in our work with our clients, and that's around testing. So I posed the question to the team, and do it here, that when we were not consultants and we were actually system administrators in our own companies, did we ever write test scripts, use test scripts, or do any other formal testing of our systems when we were system admin? So I'll follow the sword first. I didn't. I was a department of one, and I knew my systems, and I modified my system, and I tested my system, and I hoped for the best once I gave it to the end users. Anybody else have a different or similar experience?
Similar, working in nonprofit organizations. One of my first jobs was professional jobs was there was 3 of us at the office. Our time was very valuable. We were, Jacks and Jills of all trades. We didn't really necessarily have the time or think we had the time to spend on test scripts. So it was more so, okay, if we're testing something, let's just make sure we can still run our reports, get our donor data, whatever that might be. It was kind of just, let's see what happens. If it works, it works. Yeah.
Yeah, I had very similar experience in a growing company, wearing a lot of hats. So it was had a couple of different experiences. One was for systems that I did. I was system admin. I knew what changes I was making, and therefore I knew what to test, what to check, what could change or be affected. So nothing formalized there. And then I worked closely with the system admin for our CRM. And so on that side, I knew the process. We worked closely so that any changes, I was really feeding those to the admin. So then I knew the process to go through and test before approving. So very undefined process of testing.
Yeah, and I was the same. I didn't write them for sure, but I would have like, here's what I'm testing, but it wasn't a test script, which maybe we should define, right? Like, I think what we're talking about, and Patrick, what you're alluding to is like a step-by-step, here's how to do the thing that we want you to do, and you're going to go through this sequence of clicks. I do remember the first time I had a realization of how important they should be, or that we needed something, because back in that day when I was doing this, I really had limited experience as a system admin. I was like a social work before, and so this was totally new to me, and I had never really thought about it. I went through the process, everything that you guys both just said. I tested everything. I knew exactly what to look for. I knew exactly how to make the form get to where I needed to be. And then you do it with a user and you put it in front of them. And it was one of these scenarios. They'd click and it'd be like, oh, actually, just set that field. Yeah, that's right. Set that field. Okay. And then, well, hold on, go back one field and do this on this.
Yeah.
And it was, I remember clear as day at the end of that call being like, that person had no idea all the little nuanced stuff that I happen to know because I administer the system that I'm expecting them to know. And it was like a deep realization to be like, wow, I look at it and think it's way easier than what they experience it. And I remember thinking there should be a way, little did I know that test scripts was the answer, but there should be a way to make sure that they're following the exact path. So, but to your point, no, I was not.
Right. Formal. And I never had this situation either where did I have a separate user account set up with different security roles on it? No, I was just in there as me with system administrator rights.
Everything works
just going to town. Everything worked perfectly.
It's fine. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No access issues to records or tables or anything else. It's like, wow. So I like your idea, Malcolm. Maybe we should actually not just talk about all of our bad behavior in the past, but let's talk about how could someone who's never written test scripts before get started and not be overwhelmed by the process of writing test scripts. And I don't know, maybe, Malcolm, we kind of start with the concept you were just detailing of, I listed out what I did.
Yeah, and offline before we started, Emily raised a good point. around, well, no, actually it was in this call, you didn't have the resources, you didn't have the time
Yeah.
to put into it, and didn't think it was important. And I remember thinking that too. But the reality is it's critical because of all the things we just said. We know all the tricks of how, or the security role we have is different.
Mm-hmm.
So as painful as it maybe sounds, it's actually going to pay dividends in the long run if you document literally the click by click sequence. Open the record, click here. This is what's going to happen. Here's what to expect. And I mean, the structure of the test script, I've seen various formats over the years. What we do here, without getting too much detail, here's what you're trying to do. Here's how you're going to go about it. Here's your expected result. Tell us what happened, right? Did it pass? Did it fail? Whatever the values might be. And so I like the idea of going through the granular level of detail, click by click, because I know I've had scenarios where in putting the test script together, realized, oh, we actually need to move these fields in a different order because it doesn't make sense this way as you type it out. So as daunting as it maybe feels, to get a true feel for does it work the way we expect it to work, I think you do have to go that granular level of detail. I don't know what others think.
I also think, and I think, Malcolm, you alluded to this a little bit too. Whatever format this test script takes, if it's a Word doc, a board, Excel, whatever, putting in a space of what the different components are as well, like almost definitions of maybe your entities or your tables, because we might be working with a core project team when we're working on these projects. The people who are testing may not necessarily be familiar with what exactly has been developed or what exactly everything means. We may make assumptions and assume that they know, what a lead and order, whatever, but it's always helpful to, I think, put that up front in the test script. So if it's someone who maybe isn't in the system, it's a brand new implementation, they know, okay, this is what a lead means. Here's how we're defining opportunity, so that they're familiar with that. And then they get into the actual step-by-step testing of those processes.
Yeah, and to further that, it's helpful to know if available, who your testing pool is going to be comprised of. So you don't want to go those extra steps if your testers are going to be bogged down by extra steps. It is good to really go through as though you're training someone step by step, but knowing either this is someone brand new who doesn't have necessarily concepts of those basics that you mentioned, to have that mindset as you're laying it out. Whereas if you're working with testers who have gone through this, several times with you or in general, and have familiarity with the system, you can, still take it step by step, but not, go through those very basic things that someone might not know. So I found that to be helpful to keep in mind who my testers are.
I love the hidden message in here about you should have people who don't use the system regularly test, because even if we do it as consultants all the time, we hand it over and we give it to hopefully a team of testers, but some scenarios it's the system admin. Well, they have a level of knowledge of the back end of the system like we do, so they're more prone to not cut corners, but they know the secrets, they know the order, they know the things. Really should be making sure that the people who have to use this in day out that maybe don't do that today should be the ones who are testing, because they're the ones who are going to come in and hopefully be able to follow through the script and achieve whatever it is. But they're the ones that are going to say, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And I've been caught by that. I had it happen today. Somebody came back and said, this was written in the test script, but the language on the tab is actually this. And I was like, it was just one of those autopilot moments where I was like, oh, we usually call it this. And it totally threw them off. And in my head, I was like, it's right there. It's the same tab. It's just named something different. But to that user, it was totally foreign. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And all too often, I think some of our clients, and I guess this goes back to our original question when we were doing our own testing back when we were system administrators, that we wanted that easy, smooth path to be like, oh yeah, of course it's perfect. I don't have any rework to do. It's great. I was brilliant. And all the changes I made were spot on. And it's so important to get those testers who are very challenging, because they do find those things like tab labeled not being exactly what the script says or what we thought it was going to be. Yeah, pretty important. I wonder if we gave someone who's brand new to writing test scripts, like, besides just listing out the steps like that, what is something else about the test scripts themselves, not the whole testing process, but the scripts themselves? Can we each come up with like one hint or something to help them move forward with this process?
To me, it would be define very clearly what you're looking for. So I mentioned here's what you're trying to do, and this is the way I do. I don't know if everybody's the same. The what you're trying to do is usually like a few words, right? Create a lead, create an account, convert a lead. So it's short and succinct. The steps to do it are the granular. You're going to click here. You're going to fill in these fields. You're going to, do whatever you need to do, and you're going to click this button, and this is and then the expected result is this is what's going to happen.
Mhm.
It's going to do the following. And so I think being really explicit in your definitions about whatever design you decide for your test scripts, what each category is, and then even more so with the how do you report the outcome of that. And so it's we tend to use pass, fail, or fail with exceptions, or pass with exceptions, I guess. And so that can trip people up because some people are like, well, it's black and white. It's either it worked or it didn't. Well, sometimes it kind of works, right? It worked. I got an error, but I was able to proceed and I could still do what the test script said I could do. But we should probably note that there's a thing popped up in my face and I had to click through it to get past it. So I think just being really, really clear in your document that's tracking the test script is really important.
Emily, can I give you one because you already brought it up in case you're like, oh crud, I don't know what to say.
I know Malcolm's
Talking
just
about
said so many good things.
environments, when you're moving from
Oh, yeah.
one environment to the next kind of thing.
Yeah, so I guess that would be more so in preparation for testing, maybe not necessarily related to the test script itself, but in preparation for testing, making sure that if you're, when you're testing in your sandbox or dev environment, that it at least has data. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be a full copy of your production environment if you do have something existing, but just some form of data, test data, dummy data, whatever, so that when you're asking your users to go in and qualify a lead, for example, that there's actually leads for them to qualify. Because if you perhaps are pushing them into a certain process and there's no data, they're going to get tripped up. There may be frustrations, and then they may be kind of disenfranchised from the whole process from the get-go. So I think making sure that there's at least something there, something meaty there, as close to real life as possible for your users to test with would be definitely a good thing to keep in mind in prep.
Those great points there. I've seen that become a stumbling block going through and testing and having to disjoint the process and go back and make corrections. So when you're going through the next step to in UAT from dev, running through the script again, as it can be yourself, but actually preferably test user, user that has the same permissions and same security role as your testers, so that you're going through not as yourself, and that's kind of blending in what my tip would be, to make sure that you're going through it with the correct permissions, so that you're not just going through it with the administrator. And I believe Patrick mentioned that also. That's very important. And when you're going through, making sure that you have those that data to be able to complete the testing. I've found that a lot to be a stumbling block. And I'll add on to that by saying, Malcolm, where you said pass, fail, I would recommend adding an additional column for comments, so that there's additional area for feedback. So if something does pass, but with modifications, that you have that feedback, not just to know that, okay, they made it work. What did they need to do? I've also found where a tester has misinterpreted the directions, or basically just read it wrong, and so the comments basically confirmed that it did work as anticipated. It was just that they read it wrong. So.
Cool.
And a call out to attach an error log. If you get an error log, please
Right.
include it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Click
yeah,
the link that says
that's right.
show
Yeah.
details and download
Yeah.
error log. All these things are
Yes.
important. Tell your users. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit this on this topic. If you've got any other questions, do reach out to us. We're happy to help you as much as we can. And other than that, we'll wrap up this episode, and we look forward to being with you again in the future.
Bye.
Bye.